I am so glad Matthew Vaughn came back to direct this sequel. Has he ever done a sequel before? I don't think he has. Kingsman, The Golden Circle. So Kingsman, The Golden Circle is the sequel to Kingsman, The Secret Service, which came out about 2.5 years ago. It was also directed by Matthew Vaughn, and it was one of my favorite movies of 2015. It's an awesome movie. So naturally, I'm looking forward to its sequel. And honestly, I don't see why it's not getting great reviews. I don't think it's as good as the first one. I don't know if any of these Kingsman movies are going to be as good as the first one, because the first one was so revolutionary, but I still had a great time with this movie. In The Golden Circle, the villain is Poppy, played by Julianne Moore. She blows up the Kingsman base, so now what's left of the Kingsmen have to team up with the American equivalent of the Kingsmen, known as the Statesmen, and they need to team up to take out the bad guys and save the world again. Sounds good, and in my opinion, it is good. Taron Egerton still kills it as Eggsy. I love the guy, he's my bruv. And some of the story arcs he goes through, it actually makes sense because he's not a complete Kingsman yet. He's still not all logical all the time yet. He sometimes lets emotion cloud his judgment. I think that's a pretty good arc to go through in a sequel. Mark Strong is still good as Merlin, and he and Eggsy have some really good chemistry, good character moments in this one. And yes, Colin Firth is back as Harry Hart. I was really glad they were bringing him back because he was the best character in the first movie, because he was the sharp-dressed and smooth-talking badass. He's not as badass in this movie as he was in the first one. In fact, for a large portion of the movie, I was sitting there looking at his character and his story arc going, oh man, I don't like what they're giving him in this one. Now, it did pull through in the end, and it was awesome. And I do see why they had to give him this story arc. It made sense, I completely bought it, and it was funny. And of course, I gotta talk about the Statesman. The main one we deal with is Pedro Pascal as Agent Whiskey. He's the one we get the most action from, and I thought he was a badass. Some of the weapons he uses are a little out of control. And I really like the Statesman as a whole. They're not a complete ripoff of the Kingsmen. They are their own thing. They have a unique cover-up, a unique fighting style. They're different enough from the Kingsmen where I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not just completely copying them. You're like the Kingsmen's cousins or their brothers. I liked Halle Berry in this movie because she was just nice. She reminded me of like Moneypenny or something. And of course, Julianne Moore as the villain. She was no Sam Jackson from the first one, of course. I don't think she's gonna be as memorable. I'll say she was functional, but honestly, I think they could have done a lot better. She didn't suck or anything. I just don't like the angle that they took with her personality, really. She was always happy, cheery, smiling all the time. Like, yeah, I'm gonna destroy your country. I'm like, do you have no personality? I don't know. She was alright. Now, of course, one of the big standout things about the Kingsman movies is the action sequences. What did I say about the action scenes in the first movie? I said they were golden, because that was a revolutionary thing about it, is that it went zooming in and zooming in and zooming in very quickly between everything. Brutal violence and awesome choreography. It was really cool. This movie does, of course, have scenes like that, but maybe it's because I love the first one so much that none of the action in this one felt as awesome as the action in the first one did. There wasn't really a scene in this one that could compare to the church scene in the first one. I think this scene tries to, and it's cool, don't get me wrong, with another awesome rock and roll song that I just love by one of my favorite musicians of all time. It was cool, but I don't think anything is gonna top that church scene for me, because that scene was just perfection. And it did get a little over the top at times, but I really thought about it. This is a spy movie that's a throwback to the early Bond movies, right? That's what everyone's saying about these Kingsman films. And yeah, the truth is, those early Bond films were over the top and ridiculous. They really were. So honestly, I didn't expect anything less than ridiculous from this one. It is more ridiculous than the first one, which kind of leads it to be not as good as the first one, but it is what I expected, so I'm fine with it. If this franchise is aiming to be like the Bond franchise and have like 20-something entries with characters being recast and all that, which I think it is, then they're gonna end up doing a whole bunch of crazy shit. So yeah, I'm looking at it as someone who's in it for the long con. That's why I accept the ridiculousness of it. The thing about this movie is the thing that comes with any sequel, really, is that as fun as it wasn't anything new. You know, the first one, like I said, was so revolutionary because it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. So this one gives you more of what you loved from the first one, but nothing really new. And there is the argument that I said the same thing about the Lego Ninjago movie, but this movie being only the second in the series, and with the story that's different enough from the first one, I can roll with it. The music was once again done by Henry Jackman and another guy, Matthew Margeson. They brought back the Kingsman theme from the first one, which I really love, and they gave a new theme to the Statesman. And I'll say there's a certain song that they used that was in another movie this year that I really love. I'll say that song is getting around in movies this year. They actually use it as part of a score. It was actually kind of funny. I thought it was clever. So Kingsman: The Golden Circle, I thought was really enjoyable. I love the characters, the action was good, not as good as the first one, but still good. The villain could have been better, but I really did like the story. By the end of this movie, I was like, yeah, I want to see this franchise go forward with like 5 or so more movies. I want to stick around with the Kingsman for the decades to come. So for Kingsman: The Golden Circle, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. Just keep in mind though that if this franchise really is gonna go forward, then there are gonna be some great entries in there, and there are also gonna be some shit entries. That's just inevitable when we're gonna do a big franchise. There's no escaping it. So Kingsman: The Golden Circle, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.